Hey, what is up, guys? It is Harrison Barron, the Millennial Entrepreneur. Now, in today's video, I want to cover 3 points that I think are incredibly important. Now, it doesn't really matter what camp you're in as far as those points go, but essentially, you need to think about a couple different things when you're starting a business. And those 3 things are, I don't want to give them all away, but essentially, you need to find people that you can trust. Right off the bat, I'm not even going to hide this one because even though it's something that might be all the way in the back of your mind, it's really important because when you're starting a small business, you need to find a bunch of different people. Some of those people include, people that you could trust. A quality insurance person. I just had a recent video about that. I'll actually leave it down in the descriptions down below. You need to find an accountant that you can trust and is going to help you prepare for the future, right? Because essentially, growing a small business, you should, in theory, continue to grow. So there's no reason why you should stop growing. And because of that, you need to find an accountant that's going to be able to help you grow. Now, there's other people that you need to find that you can trust as well. And those might be advisors, friends. A great place to find these people are networking groups and local networking groups and things like that, where essentially you could go out and you can meet these people and develop really deep and long-lasting relationships with them. And they may even refer business. But even if they don't think of it as a bad thing. Don't think of it like, I don't like this person, they didn't give me any business. You just started a business. They don't even know what you do probably. But if they trust you and they've had experience in the business world for years, they could pass that experience down to you. Now, thankfully, this is something that I went through when I was, growing my business, and I still am growing my business, but in the very early stages. Because if you watch one of my last videos, I literally jumped out of a bus, and that's it. I was just there. There was no, hey, we're gonna come help you. It's kind of, figure out your own path, and that's how it's gonna go, right? So when you're starting a business, finding these really trusted advisors is tremendously important because it's just going to help you. It's going to make you feel more comfortable. It's going to give you a sense of security, which I think is really, really important. But also, you can go to these people for advice and help and things like that. So if you're running payroll, right? One of my good friends runs a payroll company. If you need sales training, one of my good friends is a sales trainer. All these things kind of come into play. And each one is kind of like a building block, right? And it's kind of like, it's kind of like a badge where you get the badge and good. Now it's time for the next one, right? And it just makes you feel better. So right off the bat, the number one, the most important point is you got to find people you trust. Because if you don't find people you trust, you're pretty much, it's growing a business is going to be way harder than it possibly should. Now, the next point that you're going to be thinking about is finding people that can refer business to you. Really, I mean, it sounds pretty obvious, but most people don't realize there are people out there that could refer business to you. So who are those people and what do they look like? So I'm just going to give you my scenario because it's the easiest one for me, but I can give you a couple other examples too. They might not be as accurate, so I apologize. But I own a digital marketing agency, growthgenerators.com, right? And somebody who's a really good strategic partner for me, believe it or not, and everybody always goes like, oh, accountants and lawyers, they're great for me, right? Believe it or not, some of my favorite people to work with are IT companies. Why? Because they're already involved and already talking to customers about what they're doing or how they're doing it and stuff like that. Guess who's bugging all the accountants and lawyers? Everybody else, right? But if I could just go after IT companies and say, hey, by the way, if you're an IT company and you want to partner up, I'd be happy to not only refer you business, but if you're looking for a trusted advisor that you can then say, hey, you know what? I know this marketing company. They seem to do a really good job. We do trust them a lot. Here's their number. Give them a call, right? They can feed us business all day because they're constantly talking to customers. They're constantly, oh, my website's down, this, right? It's a whole list of problems. Now, for your industry, let's just say you're a body repair shop. Mechanics are good people to know. Tire shops are good people to know. Maybe it's a towing service. Maybe it's, who knows what else it could be. Maybe it's an auto repair store, believe it or not. So the people working at the auto repair store are probably going to need to, or tell somebody, hey, this is probably a job you shouldn't do yourself. Go find an expert, right? If you're a landscaping person, right? Maybe it's a fertilizer. Maybe it's a landscape design company. Maybe it's an architect, right? These are all different things. And if you just think about the flow of okay, great. Who's a good person for an architect, right? Maybe it's a landscaper. Maybe it's a contractor. Maybe it's, maybe it is a lawyer. Maybe it's a zoning person. The list kind of goes on. And you just have to think about who are the best people that could refer you business. And that's ultimately, I know it sounds so silly because some people are like, well, obviously I need to find people that can refer me business. I understand that, but everybody always comes back to the same answers. And short little story, I was in a room once and somebody goes, oh, who's the best person to refer you business? And somebody's like, oh, my accountant's the best and my lawyer. And somebody else was like, hey, who wouldn't put them in their thing? And everybody's hand lit up. And then somebody said, hey, who else would you use to refer you business? And the room was silent, except my hand, which, at that time I was working for an IT company. But, I mean, everybody relies on the same people. Don't go to the same people. Go to more obscure places, become good friends with them, and stuff like that. And I promise you, it will help you grow your business tremendously. Because they essentially become your salespeople. It works out so much better. I really can't even begin to explain because it's just so powerful when you can actually find really good strategic partners for this. Now, the third point, which, look, there's 3 points, right? The third point is probably the farthest one in the back of your mind and something you probably don't think about often, right? Might even be forgotten at some point. But essentially, you want to meet a lot of your competitors, right? And you might be thinking, why would I want to do that? I hate my competitors, this, that, and the other thing. But more often than not, you would be shocked at how often you will get business from your competitors. Why is that? Well, every once in a while, a competitor either comes along something that they either don't want to do, or they come along something that they just aren't a specialty at, or they don't have a specialty for. So, for example, my agency, Growth Generators, we specialize in SEO. It is what we are really, really good at. But if somebody came to us and said, hey, I want you to run the most aggressive Facebook and Google campaign out there, we can't help you. I mean, we can, but we're definitely not the best at it. We're good, but if for people that are really, really serious about Google and Facebook, they're changing and updating that on a daily basis, and they're spending, budgets of $5,000, $10,000 a month. I mean, they're spending big money. Most of our accounts are much smaller and on the smaller side, and I'm okay with that. It's not what we specialize in. And, if a lot of people came to us and said, hey, we want you to run Facebook ads, I'd go hire the right person. But in the meantime, instead of me bringing on somebody on payroll, I would refer that out to a specialist, to a company that specializes purely in that area, and then give them all that business. And in return, they'll probably end up giving me business, right? Because I'd rather do the right thing by the customer and say, hey, you're spending a lot of money. You definitely need somebody who's really going to give you all the attention you deserve. Other companies are just like, hey, I know I need to run ads. I don't really care about an ROI and things like that. But for people that are super aggressive when it comes to ads, we're going to pass that off to an ad agency. It's just how it works, right? And that ad agency, when somebody approaches them and says, hey, I need the best SEO on the planet, who can help us, they'll pass it back to us and we'll knock it out of the park for them, right? So believe it or not, competitors, even though we're both digital marketers, we don't do always the same thing. Same thing with body shops, right? You have high-end body shops. You have, not to be mean to anybody, but you have low-end body shops. Maybe it's a fix-a-dent, right? Or maybe it's somebody that only does headlights or glass or whatever it is, right? Glass is part of your body, but it's usually handled by, everybody knows the company Safelite, but that's essentially how it goes, right? And Safelite doesn't really do anything else. So if you have a broken taillight or something like that, maybe you need to go see somebody else. And this is just how it works. Now, I don't know the automotive industry all that much, so if I offended anybody, I apologize. But finding your competitors and things like that is a phenomenal way to go about it because, heck, if you're a landscaping company, right, maybe you have the capabilities of doing full yard transformations, but you don't really want to do grass cutting, right? And there's another competitor who only does grass cutting, right, and can do some minor tweaks, but when a big job comes around, they could refer it to you. And when a small job comes around that's right up their alley, you can refer it to them. It's that easy. So finding those competitors is a great way to just get more business, right? I know it sounds crazy, but it happens to me all the time. I'm getting clients regularly from competitors because they either don't want to deal with the person or they're just not a specialist in that area and they know that they can't do as good of a job. And it's not right for the customer to go through and deal with them as opposed to coming right to who can actually provide them the help. And it's not just us. It's a lot of other people. I'm happy to pass on information. I pass on websites all the time. They're either outside of what we're capable of doing or they might be too small for us to do. So finding that sweet spot and things like that, it helps. find a competitor that can definitely help you. Now, those are definitely my favorite 3 points. And your points may vary a little bit, but these are some of the things that help me tremendously grow, my business and ultimately keep growing and growing and growing. And I continue to find the right people to trust, or find businesses that can refer business to me. And ultimately, I love meeting competitors. I know it sounds so silly, but when you just say, hey, I'm an SEO agency, even though we're under digital marketing, that's really all we specialize in. That's like what we are so good at, and I take such good pride in. We love building websites and everything else. But if somebody's like, hey, what's the best thing that you guys are good at? It's that. So I hope this video helps. This is something that, I'm trying to start giving away tips to future business owners and small business owners and things like that I wish somebody told me when I started my business, because it took me a little while. Granted, I did knock out the first one, trust, but businesses that can refer business and honestly competitors were things that I didn't even think about. I knew referrals, but I had the same answer as everybody else, right? Accountants, lawyers, that kind of stuff. So think a little bit outside the box. I hope this video helps. If it does, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button down below, and a little notification bell. I'll see you guys on the next one. Until then.